Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Grammar with Sean. I'm your host, Sean Agaldes. Guys, I have to apologize for being so late. I know I haven't posted in about 1 or 2 months, but I'm back again. I was preparing for school and all of that, but here I am again. Today, we're going to start off with auxiliary verbs. Just like nouns, verbs are an essential part of any sentence. Without either, you cannot express a complete thought. However, there are some types of verbs whose purpose is to help other verbs. These verbs are called auxiliary verbs. Let's see how to use them then. What is an auxiliary verb? An auxiliary verb helps the main verb of the sentence by adding tense, mood, voice, or modality to the main verb. Auxiliary verbs cannot stand alone in sentences. They have to be connected to a main verb to make sense. For example, a sentence that used the auxiliary verb could would also need a main verb for this helping verb to make sense. Looking at the following incorrect sentence, she could not whether she wanted to dye her hair blue or purple. Something is missing, right? There is the auxiliary verb could and an adverb not, but we need the main verb decide for the auxiliary verb to do its job in the sentence. The sentence should read, she could not decide whether she wanted to dye her hair blue or purple. The auxiliary verbs help the reader understand that the girl in the sentence was unable to make a decision. The main verb cannot express this indecision without the help of the auxiliary verb. There are four types of auxiliary verbs basically. They are auxiliary verbs that express tense, that's one. And here it is. These auxiliary verbs can sometimes be confused with linking verbs. So it is important to use the context of the surrounding words in the sentence or context clues to know which verb is being used. For example, he was glad that he was wearing his seatbelt when the car accident happened. In the sentence above, can you tell which verb is auxiliary and which is linking? The first was links the subject he to a state of being happy, so this is the linking verb. The second was is followed immediately by a main verb wearing, so this is the auxiliary verb, an auxiliary verb. The phrase was wearing is an example of a main verb paired with an auxiliary verb showing tense. This particular verb tense is called past progressive because it expresses an ongoing action that happens in the past. There is auxiliary verb that express mood. Oftentimes, auxiliary verbs that express mood are used in sentences that ask a question or sentences that make a command. Here is an example interrogative sentence or a sentence that asks a question. Did you remember to feed the dog yesterday? Even though this auxiliary verb did is separated from the main verb by the noun subject, it is still helping the main verb by asking whether something was done yesterday or not. Additionally, these auxiliary verbs can be used in commands or imperative sentences. For example, do not forget to walk the dog while I'm at work. In this sentence, the auxiliary verb adds emphasis to the main verb, showing that it is absolutely necessary to make sure that the dog is walked. There is auxiliary verb that express voice. Sometimes voice can refer to a writer's specific style, but in this context, voice refers to the difference between active and passive voice. When a verb is written in an active voice, the action is done by the subject of the sentence. For example, the lone dolphin called anxiously for his pod when he found himself surrounded by hungry orcas. In this sentence, the subject dolphin is performing the action of the sentence, which is called. However, if the voice was changed from active to passive, the subject can no longer do the action. The pod of dolphins was called by the anxious dolphin, who was now surrounded by hungry orcas. There is also the auxiliary verbs that expresses more modality. There is a fourth type of auxiliary verb that expresses possibly or ability, and these are called modal auxiliaries. Remember the sentence about the girl wanted to dye her hair? Since she could not decide which color to use, this is an example of modal auxiliary because it expresses the ability. Sure, maybe if she did more research or got input from her friends, she could eventually make a decision. But as it stands in the sentence, she was unable to make up her mind, making it necessary for the writer to use one of these auxiliary verbs. So then, guys, that's it for today. I want you to like and subscribe and even comment. Thank you. See you next time.